Hello everybody, my name is Ana Sima and I'm a teacher of English at Pia Brătianu School in Bucharest. I would like to invite all 7th graders to attend my English class today. In this lesson, I am going to present you a text about the United States and its natural beauties. And then in the second part of our lesson, I am going to present you the comparative and superlative of adjectives in English. Now, let me show you the materials I have prepared for you today. Your first task is going to be a listening task. So, what I'm asking you to do is to pay attention to this text as a recording. And then while you're listening, I would like you to write down a list of all the geographic terms you can hear. So, grab a pencil and a piece of paper and let's get started. Good luck.
The wild side of the USA. The United States is bigger than a lot of other countries, so it has a more varied landscape. There are beautiful tropical beaches in Florida on the East Coast, Atlantic Ocean, and California on the West Coast, Pacific Ocean. There are also high peaks in America. The Rocky Mountains, which stretch north-south almost 5,000 kilometers from Canada to the USA, have snow-capped mountains, green valleys, and pine forests. In the Midwest, the Mississippi River irrigates the land before flowing south to the sea, making the soil one of the most fertile in the world. This is also the region of the Great Lakes and their connecting channels, which together form a very large freshwater system. The Niagara River connects two of the lakes, Erie and Ontario, and sends up to 3,000 cubic meters of water per second over the spectacular Niagara Falls. The US also has arid deserts where little vegetation grows. The Great Basin Desert in the northwest has colder temperatures and higher altitudes, while further south, Death Valley in the Mojave Desert is much hotter and drier than any other desert in America. There is a great choice of national parks across the USA. The Grand Canyon, with its colorful rocks and deep gorge, Yosemite, with its powerful waterfalls, or Mount McKinley in Alaska, which is actually higher than Mount Everest from base to peak, but is lower because Everest sits on the Tibetan Plateau, over 5,000 meters above sea level. America also has lots of volcanoes, some of which are still very dangerous. Mount St. Helens in Washington state erupted in 1980, killing people and destroying their homes. Nearly 318 million people live in the United States. Although the country is more or less as large as Canada, there is a much higher population density, with 34 inhabitants per kilometer squared, compared with only 3.7 in Canada.
Okay, that was it. Our listening task. Now, let's see if my list of words is similar to your list of geographic terms, yeah? So, my very first geographic term is landscape. Then, beach, coast, sea, lake, river, channel, falls, desert, mountains, snow-capped mountains, and mountain peak. valley, forest, volcano, canyon, gorge. It's like a very deep valley with very steep sides. And plateau. Now, again, you are going to listen to the same text, and while you're listening, I have prepared 6 sentences, and you have to indicate whether these sentences are true or false according to the text. Yeah? So, pay attention to the text and then check if the sentences are true or false. Okay, so we are starting.
The USA. The United States is bigger than a lot of other countries, so it has a more varied landscape. There are beautiful tropical beaches in Florida on the east coast, Atlantic Ocean, and California on the west coast, Pacific Ocean. There are also high peaks in America. The Rocky Mountains, which stretch north-south almost 5,000 kilometers from Canada to the USA, have snow-capped mountains, green valleys, and pine forests. In the Midwest, the Mississippi River irrigates the land before flowing south to the sea, making the soil one of the most fertile in the world. This is also the region of the Great Lakes and their connecting channels, which together form a very large freshwater system. The Niagara River connects 2 of the lakes, Erie and Ontario, and sends up to 3,000 cubic meters of water per second over the spectacular Niagara Falls. The US also has arid deserts, where little vegetation grows. The Great Basin Desert in the northwest has colder temperatures and higher altitudes, while further south, Death Valley in the Mojave Desert is much hotter and drier than any other desert in America. There is a great choice of national parks across the USA. The Grand Canyon, with its colorful rocks and deep gorge. Yosemite, with its powerful waterfalls. Or Mount McKinley in Alaska, which is actually higher than Mount Everest from base to peak, but is lower because Everest sits on the Tibetan Plateau, over 5,000 meters above sea level. America also has lots of volcanoes, some of which are still very dangerous. Mount St. Helens in Washington state erupted in 1980, killing people and destroying their homes. Nearly 318 million people live in the United States. Although the country is more or less as large as Canada, there is a much higher population density, with 34 inhabitants per kilometer squared, compared with only 3.7 in Canada.
Okay.
The wild side of the
Now, let's see how you mark these sentences. So, the very first sentence, the Rocky Mountains stretch across 2 continents. This is false. The Rocky Mountains stretch across 2 countries, Canada and the United States of America. The Mississippi River irrigates the prairie lands of the Midwest. This is true. The Niagara Falls aren't connected to any lakes. This is false because the falls are connected to the Niagara River. The Great Basin Desert has higher temperatures and lower altitudes. This is false. Mount McKinley is as high as Mount Everest. This is false again. Mount Everest is higher than Mount McKinley. And the last one, Mount St. Helens is a dangerous volcano. Yes, it is, because in the past it killed people and its eruption also destroyed many homes. Okay, now we are done with the listening, and now we are going to focus our attention on a grammar problem, which is the comparative and the superlative form of adjectives. I have selected these sentences. They are right from the text you have listened to. And in all these sentences, there are comparisons between the USA and other countries in terms of landscape, or between the same landscape within the United States of America. So let me read you all these sentences, and I would like you to pay attention to the structure of the words in red. So the United States is bigger than a lot of other countries, so it has a more varied landscape. The Great Basin Desert has colder temperatures and higher altitudes. The Mojave Desert is much hotter and drier than any other desert in America. There is a much higher population density than the population density of Canada. And the last one, the country is almost as large as Canada. All these are comparatives. Yeah? So we compare one term with another term. And how do we form this comparative? You can see most of these words end in ER, like bigger, colder, hotter, but we also have this structure more varied. So the difference is between the number of syllables each adjective contains. Big is a short adjective, so we have this comparative bigger. Varied is considered to be a long adjective, so we have this structure more varied. In here, I have a more detailed explanation for all these comparative of adjectives. As you can see, we have short adjectives in the first part of the table and long adjectives in the second part of the table. So, if we have a short adjective, mainly adjectives which contain a syllable, maximum 2 syllables, we add either ER or just R if the adjective finishes in E. So we have slow, slower, deep, deeper, large, larger, wide, wider. You have to be careful because some adjectives which have the vowel, their vowel is a short vowel, like in hot, I have a short O, like in big, I have a short I. They double the consonant when they form the comparative. Hot, hotter. Big, bigger. Double T, double G. And you must be careful again with adjectives ending consonant plus Y, because they drop the Y and the Y is replaced by IER, like heavy, heavier, dry, drier. So this is the case for short adjectives. For long adjectives, adjectives made up of 2 or more syllables, like beautiful, 3 syllables, interesting, 3 syllables, we add more. More beautiful, more interesting. Again, there are some irregular comparatives in English. Good, better, bad, worse, far, further, or further. These must be memorized the way they are. They don't have a rule of their own. Okay, and now another structure of comparative is the structure using as. The USA is almost as large as Canada, so they are closely similar in terms of their surface. The Matterhorn is not as high as Mont Blanc, which means that Mont Blanc is higher than the Matterhorn. This is called the comparative of equality, when two terms are similar or closely similar to each other. So we have this structure, as plus adjective plus as, or not plus as plus adjective plus as, to say that two things, two people, two animals do not have the same features, attributes. Okay, now I have prepared for you some practice exercises. So, form comparative sentences for the following prompts. And you have bus, slow, plane. A bus is slower than a plane. Then, driving, dangerous, traveling by train. Driving is more dangerous than traveling by train because dangerous is a long adjective. London, old, Bucharest. London is older than Bucharest. Cycling, good for you, driving. Cycling is better for you than driving because, as I told you earlier, good is an irregular adjective. Yeah? So the comparative for good is better. Detective stories, exciting documentaries. Detective stories are more exciting than documentaries. The weather in England, bad, Spain. The weather in England is worse than in Spain. Again, bad has the comparative form worse. So we had a short adjective slow with a comparative slower than. A long adjective dangerous with a comparative form more dangerous than. And we had good, the adjective good, with the comparative better. And again, another irregular adjective, bad, with the comparative worse. Now, in the following practice exercise, the focus is on using the comparative of equality when we say that two things are similar to each other or that they have no similarities. Yeah? And I want you to focus your attention on the structure as plus adjective as, or not as plus adjective as. So, leopards are fast. Lions are fast. This means that leopards are as fast as lions. Then, storms are dangerous. Tornadoes are more dangerous, which means that storms aren't as dangerous as tornadoes are. Mice are small animals. Bats are small. So, mice are as small as bats. Cairo is densely populated. Manila is more densely populated. which means that Cairo isn't as densely populated as Manila. Tortoises are slow. Garden snails are slower. This means that tortoises aren't as slow as snails. So, this is the comparative. Yeah? We have ER for short adjectives, as we said in here. Big, bigger, slow, slower. Pay attention to the adjectives which double the consonant. Pay attention to the adjective which end in consonant plus Y. And we have long adjectives. Beautiful, interesting, difficult, which form the comparative with more, in front of them. More beautiful, more difficult, more interesting. And also try to memorize these three irregular adjectives in comparative. Good, better, bad, worse, far, in the expression far away, yes, something which is not close to you, further or further. And you also have this structure of comparative of equality. As beautiful as high as, not as high as large as, not as large as. Okay, so this was the comparative. Now, in the text we have listened to, I have identified. Look, this sentence, which is here in purple, the soil is the Mississippi River. The listening text says that the Mississippi River makes the soil one of the most fertile in the world. So this is called a superlative. So the soil of the United States of America is among the most fertile ones in the world. So no other soils in the world are as fertile as the soil in the United States of America. And in the second part of our lesson, I would like to present you the superlative of adjectives. Again, the adjectives fall into short and long adjectives. The same rule which we applied when we formed the comparative. Yeah? So, high, great, rare, wide, they all have one syllable, so they are short adjectives. They form the superlative adding est. So we have high, we have the highest. We have est and the article the preceding the adjective. Great, the greatest. Rare, if the adjective finishes in E, we only add the st. The rarest. Wide, the widest. Again, the same adjectives which double the consonant in comparative, they will double the consonant in superlative as well. So we have hot, we have wet, we will have the hottest and the wettest in the superlative forms. Again, pay attention to the consonant plus y. Again, the y is dropped and it is replaced by iest. So we have heavy, heaviest. Pay attention to the spelling. Dry, driest. And so these were the short adjectives. Now, the long adjectives, like important, like dangerous, will form the superlative by using the, most, and the adjective. We will have the most important, the most dangerous, the most difficult. And again, the three irregular superlatives from the same three irregular verbs. So we have good again with the superlative the best. We have bad with the superlative the worst. And we have far with its superlative forms the furthest or furthest. Now, let's practice this superlative form in a short exercise in which you have to put all the adjectives in brackets in the superlative. So, cheetahs are fast creatures on land, but peregrine falcons are fast creatures of all. Cheetahs are the fastest creatures on land, but the peregrine falcons are the fastest creatures of all. Japanese is one of difficult languages to learn. Japanese is one of the most difficult languages to learn. Venus is bright planet in our sky. Venus is the brightest planet in our sky. So no other planet is brighter than Venus. Very few languages could be easier than Japanese, yeah? Because Japanese is one of the most difficult languages. The same with the peregrine falcon. No other creature, yeah, can run or fly faster than the peregrine does. So this is the fastest creatures of all. Mars has got large volcano in the solar system. Mars has got the largest volcano in the solar system. Italians make good pizza in the world. Italians make the best pizza in the world. So no other nations make a better pizza than Italians. Yeah? Death Valley is one of dry places in the world. Death Valley is one of the driest places in the world. So, to revise a bit, we have a short adjective like big with the comparative bigger with the superlative the biggest, and the comparative of equality as big as. And we have a long adjective like difficult, which forms the comparative more difficult, and the superlative the most difficult. And do not forget the three irregular adjectives: good, bad, far. And here we have good has the comparative better and the superlative the best. So we have good, better, the best. Bad with the comparative worse and the superlative the worst. And far with the comparative further or farther and the superlative the further or the farthest. So guys, this was all for today. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope it will be useful for you in the future. I hope I will see you in a next lesson. Stay safe and take care of you. It's been nice meeting you. Bye-bye.